Hey everyone, it's Christy here, and welcome back to her final word. Grab a warm drink, settle in, and turn the volume up because the story sitting in my inbox today is going to make your blood run cold and then give you the most satisfying rush of pure justice you've felt all year. Before we dive into the wolves and the sheep of this university town, I want to try something a little different today. Gossip travels faster than light, doesn't it? It slips through the cracks of big cities and echoes down the streets of quiet suburbs. I'm incredibly curious. Where in the world is this story reaching you right now? Drop your city and country in the comments below. Let's see how far our circle of trust actually spans today. Make sure you stay tuned until the very end of this video. Once Iris's story finishes playing out, I'm going to share 3 brutal, highly effective psychological mind games to use if you ever find yourself target practiced by small-minded rumors. It'll teach you exactly how to let a liar weave their own noose without you ever lifting a finger. But first, let's just look at how Iris handled it. Look closely at me, Marcus. Look at my face, Paige. You told this entire graduating class that I traded my dignity in a dying old man's bed just to hold this piece of paper in my hands. Well, the old man is gone, but his lawyer is standing right next to me. And before anyone walks out of these doors today, we are going to read exactly who owns the very ground beneath your feet. At 63 years old, you don't expect to find yourself back in the fluorescent-lit hallways of a university, carrying a backpack that feels heavier with every passing sem. Esther, but life doesn't care about your timeline. When my husband passed away, the silence in our empty house became a physical weight. I needed a purpose. So I enrolled in the Advanced Botanical Economics Master's program at St. Judas's. I didn't want pity, and I certainly didn't want friends. I just wanted to lose myself in the research. Most of my peers were in their early 20s, vibrant, aggressive, and fiercely competitive. To them, I was a ghost, a strange, wrinkled anomaly who sat in the front row taking notes by hand. Except for Professor Arthur Vance. Arthur was an institution unto himself. A brilliant, fiercely private man of 75, with sharp blue eyes and a reputation for failing anyone who showed a lack of genuine discipline. He was also my grandfather. We had kept that a strict secret. When my grandmother passed decades ago, Arthur had cut ties with most of the external family to protect his privacy from the cutthroat politics of the university board. When I enrolled, he sat me down in his dimly lit, book-lined office. "Iris," he had said, his voice a gravelly whisper, "if they know you're my flesh and blood, every achievement of yours will be labeled as nepotism. Let them think you are just another student. Let your work speak." And so I did. I spent 4 to 5 hours every single evening in his private lab, analyzing rare soil structures for our joint thesis on agricultural sustainability, a project funded by a massive $250,000 federal grant. We worked in silence, sharing nothing but the scratching of pens and the occasional cup of black coffee. He was my anchor. But universities are breeding grounds for envy, and when you spend hours behind closed doors with a powerful man, people who lack talent begin to manufacture explanations. One evening, around 9:30 p.m., I was leaning over Arthur's desk, helping him adjust his glasses as we reviewed a complex data set. He was weak from a heart condition he refused to publicize, and his hands were shaking. I placed a comforting hand on his shoulder, whispering, "Just a little longer, we're almost there." Outside the frosted glass of his office door, the silhouette of a person lingered. A faint, metallic click of a smartphone camera shutter echoed in the empty hallway, muffled by the heavy oak. I froze, looking toward the door, but the shadow was already gone. The change was subtle at first, a sudden hush whenever I walked into the postgraduate lounge. The way the girls in the back row would lean their heads together, eyes darting to my sensible orthopedic shoes, then to my face before bursting into stifled, ugly giggles. Paige was the ringleader. She was 24, the daughter of a prominent local donor, and used to getting exactly what she wanted. What she wanted right now was the lead spot on the Vance grant tenty, very spot my research had secured for me. "Must be nice," Paige remarked loudly one afternoon as I walked past her desk. She was spinning a high-end designer pen between her fingers. "Some of us actually have to study until 3,000 a.m. to get an A-. Others just need to know exactly how the professor likes his coffee, or whatever else he likes." I stopped in my tracks, turning to face her. "If you have a question about my data, Paige, my methodology is fully public on the student portal." Paige scoffed, a cruel, mocking smile spreading across her perfectly made-up face. "Oh, we aren't talking about your data, Iris. We're talking about your stamina. Though, honestly, at your age, I didn't know you still had it in you. Isn't it a bit exhausting playing the doting student by day and the bedside comfort by night?" The room went dead silent. Dozens of eyes stared at me, waiting for me to scream, to cry, to break down. Instead, I took a deep breath, looked her dead in the eye, and said, "Envy is a very loud emotion, Paige. Try studying. It's quieter." But Paige didn't stop. The next morning, the entire department received an anonymous email blast. Attached were 3 photos. One was of me leaning over Arthur's desk, my hand on his shoulder. Another was a blurry shot of me leaving his office building at midnight, wrapping my coat tightly around myself. The caption read, "Your academic integrity or senior citizen benefits. How one 60-year-old student is sleeping her way to a $250K grant. Nonjit." By noon, I was summoned to the dean's office. Dean Marcus was a young, ambitious bureaucrat in his late 30s, obsessed with donor funding and public relations. He sat behind his mahogany desk, looking at the printed photos with an expression of profound disgust. "Iris," Marcus said, adjusting his silk tie, "this is a disaster for our department's image. Professor Vance is a liability at his age, and now this? I am officially freezing your access to the grant funds pending a full board investigation." "Marcus," I said, keeping my voice steady despite the hammer beating in my chest, "these allegations are entirely baseless. If you look at the research timelines—" "I don't care about the timelines," Marcus snapped, slamming his hand on the desk. "I care about the fact that Paige's father is threatening to pull a $500,000 endowment if this university protects a woman using questionable methods to secure academic favors. Pack your things from the lab. Until the board meets next month, you are suspended from campus duties." As I walked out of his office, Paige was standing by the water cooler. She didn't say a word. She just raised her travel mug to me in a silent, victorious toast. The next 3 days were a blur of isolation. I stayed at home, drafting formal appeals, but the silence of my house felt hostile now. I tried calling Arthur, but his personal line went straight to voicemail. He was likely being hounded by the administration to step down quietly. On the 4th morning, my phone rang. It wasn't Arthur. It was the university administration office. "Iris? We regret to inform you that Professor Arthur Vance suffered a massive, fatal myocardial infarction in his home last night. Because of the ongoing investigation, his office has been sealed by campus security." The world tilted on its axis. My grandfather was gone. The only man who could clear my name with a single word had died under the crushing weight of the stress they had manufactured. He died thinking his life's work was tarnished by a malicious lie. I didn't cry, not yet. The grief was there, a massive, icy block in my throat, but beneath it, a blinding, white-hot rage began to take root. I drove straight to the campus. I needed to see his office, to collect his personal journals, but when I reached the 3rd floor, I found the door already open. Inside, Dean Marcus was personally boxing up Arthur's leather-bound books. Standing right next to him, holding a stack of file folders, was Paige. "What are you doing?" my voice rang out through the hallway. Marcus turned around, startled, but quickly recovered his arrogant composure. "Ah, Iris. You shouldn't be here. Professor Vance's estate is currently being processed by the university legal team, and since his research project is now leaderless, I have appointed Paige as the interim head of the Botanical Sustainability Project. Her father has graciously agreed to fast-track his donation to cover the administrative transition. Paige smiled, a small, triumphant smirk. Don't worry, Iris. I'll make sure your name gets a tiny footnote in the acknowledgments for your clerical assistance. You stole his files, I whispered, looking at the folders in her hand. Those are his private research logs from the last 10 years. They belong to the university now, Marcus said coldly, stepping between me and the desk. You need to leave, Iris. Before I have security escort you off the property permanently. Your graduation is next Tuesday. You are permitted to walk across the stage to receive your basic diploma solely to avoid a public scene, but your master's thesis honors have been officially revoked due to moral turpitude. I looked at Marcus. I looked at Paige, who was already sliding Arthur's gold fountain pen into her purse. All right, I said softly. I will see you both at graduation. Graduation day arrived, heavy with the scent of summer rain and expensive perfume. The grand auditorium was packed to maximum capacity with proud parents, wealthy alumni, and the local press. I sat in the very back row of the graduating class, wearing my black gown, my hands resting quietly in my lap. Ahead of me, several rows down, Paige sat in the VIP section, her hair perfectly coiffed, her shoulders straight with the unearned confidence of a thief. Dean Marcus stood at the podium, his voice booming through the state-of-the-art sound system. He spoke of tradition, of integrity, and of the bright future of St. Judas's University. And now, Marcus smiled warmly into the flashing cameras, before we present the individual diplomas, I want to invite up a student who embodies the true spirit of resilience and academic excellence. To present our keynote student address, please welcome the new head of our sustainability initiative, Miss Paige Vance Endicott. The crowd erupted into applause. Paige stood up, smoothing her gown, and walked up the steps to the stage with practiced grace. She took the microphone, looking out over the crowd with a look of supreme satisfaction. Thank you, Dean Marcus, Paige began, her voice dripping with artificial humility. This year has been challenging for our department. We faced scandals, we faced people who attempted to take shortcuts, people who traded honor for opportunity. But truth always prevails. I stand here today dedicated to preserving the legacy of the late, great Professor Arthur Vance, whose work I will proudly carry forward. I stood up. The rustle of my gown didn't make a sound, but as I began to walk down the center aisle, a murmur started from the back rows. I wasn't walking like an old woman defeated by rumors. I walked with my head held high, my spine like steel, flanked on my left by a tall, sharp-looking man in a tailored charcoal suit carrying a thick, leather briefcase. Marcus noticed me first. His smile faltered. He leaned toward the microphone, trying to cut me off before I reached the stage. Iris, please return to your seat. The student procession has not begun. I didn't stop. I walked right up the wooden steps of the stage. Paige stopped speaking, her eyes widening in fury as I approached the podium. Get her off the stage, Paige whispered fiercely, trying to block the microphone with her body. Security. 2 campus guards moved toward the stairs, but the man in the charcoal suit stepped forward, pulling a gold-stamped legal document from his briefcase and holding it directly in front of the head guard's face. I am Richard Sterling, senior partner at Sterling & Associates and the executor of the late Professor Arthur Vance's estate, the man announced, his voice carrying perfectly across the front rows. If you touch my client, this university will face a federal injunction before the sun sets today. The guards hesitated, stepping back. The auditorium fell into a suffocating, breathless silence. Every camera lens in the press row turned toward us. I stepped up to the microphone, gently but firmly pushing Paige aside. She stumbled back a step, her face turning a violent shade of crimson. Good afternoon, faculty, parents, and classmates, I said, my voice steady, echoing off the high marble ceilings. For the past 3 weeks, a rumor has circulated through this campus. A rumor started by Miss Paige Endicott and actively weaponized by Dean Marcus. They told you that I, a 63-year-old widow, secured my master's degree and a $250,000 grant through the bed of Professor Arthur Vance. A collective, massive gasp rippled through the audience. Several board members in the front row stood up in shock. "Iris, stop this madness immediately," Marcus yelled, his face pale, sweat breaking out across his forehead. "You are destroying your own reputation." "No, Marcus," I turned to look at him, my expression completely serene. "I am establishing yours. You see, Professor Vance never defended me against your board because we agreed that the truth should be delivered when it would hurt you the most. Arthur Vance was not my lover. He was my maternal grandfather." The silence in the room was so absolute you could hear the hum of the overhead lights. Peggy's mouth fell open, her eyes darting wildly between me and the lawyer. "And unfortunately for both of you," I continued, gesturing to Mr. E. Sterling, "Arthur did not leave his legacy to this university. He owned it. Mr. Sterling, if you please." The lawyer stepped up to the second microphone, opening the leather binder. "As per the legally binding last will and testament of Professor Arthur Vance, executed and registered 4 years ago, the land upon which St. Zeno, Judaeus University stands, including the laboratory facilities, the library, and the endowment trust valued at $14 million, was held under a private family land patent. Upon his passing, 100% of these assets transfer immediately to his sole living heir and executor, Mrs. Executor, Iris Vance Conroy." Marcus collapsed backward into his leather ornamental chair, his jaw slack, his eyes hollow. "Which brings me to my first executive decision as the new chairwoman of the University Trust," I said, looking directly at the trembling dean. "Marcus, your contract contains a strict clause regarding moral turpitude and the fabrication of administrative evidence to appease donors. You are terminated effective immediately. Security, please escort the former dean to his office to collect his personal items in a cardboard box." The same 2 guards who had tried to stop me moved instantly toward Marcus, taking him by the arms. He didn't even fight them. He looked like a ghost being led away. "And as for you, Paige," I turned my gaze to the girl who had spent weeks trying to destroy my life. She was shaking so hard her graduation cap was crooked. "Your father's endowment cannot save you because I don't need his money. I have reviewed the files you took from my grandfather's office. The preliminary data you submitted yesterday under your own name for the grant transition contains 3 distinct chapters copied word for word from my private research logs from 2 semesters ago. Mr. Sterling has already filed the paperwork with the academic board. Your master's degree is officially annulled for plagiarism and academic fraud. You will leave this stage and this campus without a diploma." Paige burst into tears, a humiliating, choking sob that echoed through the microphone. She hid her face in her hands and fled down the stage steps, tripping over her gown as the press cameras flashed mercilessly in her face. I turned back to the audience, adjusted my cap, and smiled. "Now, let's begin the real graduation ceremony." The campus is a much quieter place now. The sustainability project is up and running under my direct supervision, with a fresh team of brilliant young students who care more about soil composition than campus politics. Marcus is currently facing a civil lawsuit for administrative misconduct, and from what I hear through the grapevine, Paige had to transfer to an online college out of state, her family name thoroughly toxic in local academic circles. Sometimes people think that because you are older, you are soft. They think your silence is weakness and that your dignity prevents you from fighting dirty. But what they don't understand is that time teaches you patience. It teaches you to let your enemies build their own trap, brick by brick, lie by lie. You don't need to yell to be heard. You just need to wait for the right moment to speak. And when you do, make sure it's the final word. Wow. Just wow. Talk about an absolute masterclass in poetic justice. Paige and Marcus really thought they could use Iris's age and her privacy as a weapon against her, only to realize they were playing checkers with a woman who owned the entire chessboard. What I love most about Iris's story is how she didn't waste her energy arguing in the hallways. She didn't post emotional rants on social media. She let them get so comfortable in their lies that they walked right into a public execution of their careers. As promised, if you are dealing with toxic rumors right now, whether it's at school, in your office, or within your own family, here are 3 psychological rules to survive the gossip and turn it back on them. Rule 1: the information starvation diet. The worst thing you can do when someone spreads a rumor is to aggressively deny it to everyone who asks. Liars feed on your reaction. When you get emotional, it looks like guilt to an outside observer. Give them absolutely nothing. Act completely unfazed, smile, and change the subject. When the bully realizes they can't get a rise out of you, they start making bigger, wilder claims to get a reaction. And that is when they make a mistake and expose themselves. Rule 2: document standard. Don't emotionalize. Like Iris, keep your receipts quietly. Don't confront the liar when you catch them. Save the screenshots, save the emails, note the dates and times. Build your case in absolute silence. When you have enough evidence to completely dismantle their reputation with HR, a board, or a legal authority, you strike once, swiftly, and with 0 warning. Rule 3: let the trap spring itself. Most gossips are deeply insecure and inherently lazy. If they steal your credit or lie to get ahead, they will eventually have to prove their competence. Let them take the lead. Let them climb to the top of the pedestal based on a lie, because the higher they climb, the harder they fall when the truth finally comes to light. Now, I want to hear from you. Iris had the ultimate trump card. She literally owned the school. But not all of us have a secret inheritance up our sleeve. If you were in Iris's shoes and you didn't have the will or the lawyer, how would you have handled Paige's vicious rumors? Would you have confronted her face to face, or would you have found another way to make her pay? Let's get a debate going down in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to Her Final Word for more stories of ultimate justice, and I will see you in the next one. He's safe out there.